KWOC News Time, 8:28. Welcome back to Brittney on the Bluff, brought to you by Today's Computers, Key Drugs, First Community Bank, and Whitworth's Gift Chest Jewelers in Poplar Bluff. So there you go, a little sampling of something that we have here on KWOC every Saturday evening, 6 p.m. It is The Screen Team, a local movie review program. Makes me want to go watch Hondo again. I haven't seen that one in years. Going to have to find some place to rent that one and check that out. Again, I'd like to remind you that there are a lot of foster children here in Butler County and Ripley counties, and usually that's a situation, no fault of their own, where these kids, find themselves living with strangers, basically. It's got to be a tough time, right? Especially at the holidays. So these kids really deserve to have a great Christmas. I mean, they really do. And the folks that are in charge of our foster child system here in our area are trying to get enough money together to make sure that every foster child in Butler and Ripley counties actually gets a Christmas gift this year. So you can help. You can help. You know that these kids are in these places, and it's not because of something they've done. It's not because they're bad kids or something like that. They're good kids, and you can help them out this holiday season. Make their Christmas a little bit brighter by making a contribution so that all of these foster kids, and like I said earlier, Mr. Newton had told me that we have more kids in foster care in our counties than any place else in the state. That's kind of sad in and of itself, isn't it? Help them out, okay? Make a donation so that these folks can get these kids a Christmas gift this year. A gift. That's not too much to ask, is it? Give Barry Newton a call at 429-0279. That's 429-0279. And lucky me, I have got a friend. I've got a friend. I called Jeff Shawn, Butler County Emergency Management Director, and I said, I sent him a text, actually. I said, Jeff, my guest couldn't make it today. He got sick, had to leave. Trying to fill the show. Would you come help me out? And he says, I'll be right there. Now, that's pretty cool, Jeff.
That's like that TV show, Call a Friend.
It is so nice to have somebody out there that in a crisis you can call and say, hey, help me out, please.
Well, I'm all about crises,
man,
aren't I?
Thank you. You are. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. You just helped me manage my emergency. Thank you.
Good morning, Brittney.
Oh, gosh. Thanks, Jeff, for coming in. I know it's a little short notice. Do apologize for that.
No, well, that's okay. I like to say that it's an honor and a privilege to be the EMA director for Butler County, and I never miss an opportunity, if there's any way I can, to just help my community be prepared, because I have two modes that I work in. One is during an emergency, the things that I'm doing to create the best possible outcome. And that really is my job. That's a description of my job.
That's a pretty cool job.
It is. It's way cooler than what I thought it would be. I had no idea what I was getting into. But so if there's not an emergency, then all I'm doing is trying to prepare my community for the next one, because we know we'll have one.
And that is the thing with really living anywhere in the world. You can be in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Perfect Hawaii, where they have the same temperature year-round. No bugs. It's a beautiful place. But guess what? They have emergencies pop up.
Things happen, yeah. Even in paradise.
Happens. Yeah. And here we are in wintertime, which last winter was a little rough here in southeast Missouri.
It drove me crazy. Last winter drove me crazy because, that first winter storm came in, and of course, you prepare for it, a couple of days ahead of time it's coming. Then it comes, and then it does whatever it is it's going to do. And then you have a day or two that you're, getting through that. And as God is my witness, we'd go through that, and then I'd be hearing, okay, well, in about 3 more days, here comes another one.
Yeah.
And that's the way it went all winter long.
All winter
just
last year.
Never did let up. And I was amazed by that. And I had, one of the things about this job that I did not think about ahead of time is that, and I'd never lived in a job like this, but I'm literally on call 24 hours a day,
You sure
7 days a
are.
week.
Because
Yeah,
it could happen any time.
anything can happen anytime. Even when Christy and I went on a vacation to Wyoming, had something big happened in Butler County, EMA city director Ralph Stucker, who does a wonderful job, would have been there in my stead, but we would have had to just head back. And if it
Yeah.
takes 2 days, then it takes 2 days. But and I don't say that to complain. It's just something I didn't really realize. Well,
Right.
so last winter just it just drove me crazy. I couldn't believe that was supposed to be the winter that I was going to do a lot of computer courses, that I need to take ongoing stuff and catch
Do a
up
little training here and
yeah,
there.
spend a
Yeah.
little comp time, relax, and do some planning. It was nothing like that. I was pulling
Didn't
my
happen,
hair
did
out.
it? Well, I've said this before, and I don't know if I believe it or not, but Farmer's Almanac says we're supposed to have a rough year again this year. I thought with that first snow
Right.
back in October,
Yeah, it's like, well,
I
okay,
thought, oh, here it
comes.
comes, yeah. and that kind of, that melted off, and we haven't
Yeah.
really had any serious issues since then, but that certainly doesn't mean that we don't have them on the way.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where people have said that to me. Oh, they're saying, whoever they are, they're
Right,
saying.
they say.
It's the almanac and there's they. And I'm sort of like, well, we need to prepare for a winter every winter anyway, and I'm just not going to buy into that. I'm just going to say to folks, look, you need to get prepared for this winter.
Yeah.
And to me, there's a few things that you need to do, understanding that, we could be having another non-traditional Southeast
Right.
Missouri winter. And I think one of them is examine your car a little bit. Look at your tires. Are they at the end of their life? Because even if they're not snow tires, if they're just new radial tires with lots of tread, they're going to do a whole lot better.
Sure, yeah.
And so, take a look at your tires. And maybe go ahead. You could probably get another 5,000 miles out of them. Don't do that. And certainly don't drive on Maypops.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Don't try to get through this winter with your tires at the end of their life. That doesn't make a lot of sense. And one of the things, and I guess everybody that's in the car repair business in town is going to be loving me, but
Sending business our way.
go get a flush and fill. Empty out your antifreeze. Flush your radiator. Refill it with antifreeze. Don't fill it with water, because we had truly Arctic temperatures last winter.
Yeah.
And you could ruin your car by not having proper antifreeze in there, or old antifreeze. If you can't remember when you had a flush and fill, then you probably need to just go get one.
Yeah.
And there's specials around town. You can get it done for less than $100, and that's important, I think. So pay attention to your car. Make sure it's in good condition, because we may in fact have another pretty rough winter. So that's one thing. The other thing is take a look at what you have in your car.
Yeah.
We had, by Southeast Missouri standards, we had some epic snows, didn't we?
That was crazy, man. I mean, my car, I could not get to my house
Yeah.
in my car for
Yeah.
a long time.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Not just a day or two.
Yeah. Right.
You know?
It was it was something, and so normally we don't think of ourselves as having the kinds of problems that you might have in Colorado or Utah, or
Right.
extreme
Where they
winter.
get 2 feet of snow.
but the truth of the matter is, I was pretty scared a few times last winter, thinking about somebody who could get stranded. Their car quits, and we have some pretty lonely county roads.
Oh,
And
gosh,
if you
yeah.
got way off on a county road in Butler County, and you got stuck, and we had temperatures that were around zero, well, you can die. You need to prepare your car, and I can tell you, I can pop Christie's trunk right now, and I can guarantee you there's 2 emergency blankets in there. You need to make sure that you've got, believe it or not, water You need drinking water in your car.
Absolutely, yeah.
You need to have some means of keeping yourself warm for a protracted period of time. Now, I believe that in Butler County, I don't think you're going to be stuck for 2 days in the snow or anything like that. I'm sure somebody's going to come looking for you. Um, but you could, you could be in harm's way, being stuck for 3, 4, 5 hours, and you could freeze to death in your car in these extreme situations if you're not prepared. You don't have, so you need layers of clothes, extra clothing, emergency blankets. Believe it or not, one of these candles that's in a glass jar, uh, you can it won't make it comfortably warm on the inside of a car, but it will
Makes a
warm it to the
difference,
point
doesn't it?
where you'll
Yeah,
survive. Yeah.
yeah.
Uh-huh. And have a little food in your car as well. Just some kind of a snack, a granola bar or whatever. Have some snacks. So have water, have snacks, have serious means of being able to keep yourself warm.
Sources
And
of warmth.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's very, very important. Um,
I think a lot of people, because of, everybody's got a cell phone now,
yeah,
it kind of takes the fear out of
it
stuff to us
does.
because we think, oh, I can always call for help.
It does, and that's the thing. There are places in Butler County, and you know it as well as I do. In fact, I think out where you live, cell service
It's a
might
little
be
sketchy sometimes.
it's a little
Yeah.
iffy,
Yeah.
and you can get into. I know for a fact right there because this happens to me every time I'm barreling down Highway 60, right near the Butler County Carter County line.
Mm-hmm.
Your cell phone's going to drop off.
Yep.
You're
Yeah.
going to lose that call. So we know that there are places. So you can't say, well, I don't have to worry because I've got my cell phone.
Right.
That's not wise. So have a little bit of forethought.
Plus, I mean, if it's something, if it's a very serious weather event, like when we had the big ice storm, cell service was out for some people.
Yes.
And you may not even have any service to start with.
That's right.
So what good is that cell phone doing you? You have to be prepared just in case.
Yes.
Just in case.
And then finally, what I would say is when it gets nasty like that, stay at home.
That's really the best advice,
Stay
isn't
at
it?
home.
I mean, it really, provided you're not going to lose your job or something like that.
Right.
We're not trying to encourage you to stay home when your boss is saying you're out if you do. But at the same time, why risk it?
Don't
Isn't
risk
your
it.
life worth a little bit more than that?
And we know, we almost universally know that these storms are coming oftentimes days ahead of time.
Right.
And so, if you're paying attention at all, then that take stock of your situation. What do I have at home? Do I have what I need at home? And we got through last winter. It was amazing to me, as bad as that weather was, what a wonderful job both our city utilities and Ozark Border did
No
of
kidding.
keeping power.
Yeah.
I don't know if there was anybody who went a whole day without power. Perhaps there was. But I just don't remember
Right.
that. Certainly, we never had a widespread outage
Yeah.
at all, and any outages that we had could almost be figured in minutes, if not hours.
Right.
But having said that, depending on the type of storm we get and what happens, we can always talk about 2009 if we want to talk about how extreme it can be.
Golly.
But
I'll never forget that as long as I live. How
but
crazy that
take
was.
stock of your home situation and ask yourself, are you going to be able to keep yourself warm for a period of a couple of days? And so ask yourself if it's 0 degrees outside, because we had below zero
Yeah.
more than once, multiple times last winter. So ask yourself, if it's 0 degrees outside and I've got no utilities to the home, am I going to be able to keep myself warm? And how am I going to do that? Have an answer for yourself. And, there's alternative forms of heating, and lots of people have kerosene heaters. I would caution you on that. I would say,
Be careful
I'm not
with them,
saying
yeah.
run out and buy a kerosene heater, because those occasionally kill people. take a look at what your alternative form is.
Right.
If you've got a fireplace, if it's served with propane, if you've got plenty of propane. I know my mother has a fireplace that's equipped with propane, and she filled the tank up this summer so she could go days and days and days and stay in her living room
Just use that
and
for her,
stay
yeah.
plenty. She'd be toasty, actually.
Yeah.
So, put yourself in that circumstance and ask yourself, how am I going to do that? If all else fails, if you don't have an alternative form of heat, then, you can put layers of clothing on. Being in your house will keep you out of the wind. And this may sound a little silly, but make yourself a blanket tent and stay in that blanket tent.
Oh, I never thought of that.
And then, in your own heat, and bring your pet in.
Oh, yes, please bring the pets in if it gets bad. Oh my gosh.
The old rock and roll group, 3 Dog Night.
Yeah.
What that meant was, it's a cold night, you need 3 dogs to keep you warm.
Keep you warm. Snuggle with them.
So if
it
it's
helps.
a 3 Dog night, bring the dogs in, get under, make yourself a blanket tent. But, I'm not saying people are likely to freeze to death, but boy, they could be very uncomfortable, or they could harm themselves. And there are people who have fragile health. They don't need that sort of situation. So take stock.
Well, how do you feel about generators? I mean, not everybody can afford one, of course, but
generators are wonderful, and Butler Countyans are much more equipped with generators since 2009.
Yeah, they sold a ton of them then, didn't they? I remember every time a store would get a couple in, we'd go on the air, and in minutes they'd be gone.
Yeah, if there are small generators that are less expensive. And don't use fuel quite so quickly, but what they'll do is they'll give you a plug in the house, and you can hook up a small portable heater and stay warm.
Right.
And you may only be able to function, unplug that for a while and plug in my microwave so I can heat up my food. And,
yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people. I knew of a woman that worked for the assessor's office in Mississippi County in 2009. I believe she went 4 weeks or 5 weeks without power.
Oh, there was people that went longer than that even. I remember I went to pick some strawberries in the spring, and the family that I went to pick berries at still did not have power.
That's crazy. But that was an epic storm.
It was. And I hope we never see anything like that again, ever.
Last winter before last, we came within what I would say is 4 degrees of repeating that circumstance. The temperature was 33 degrees. If it had gone the other direction and been 29, with the rainfall that we were getting, and ice was still accumulating I was watching it accumulate on the trees and the power lines, and I'm going, oh my gosh, I don't even know where my pencil drawer is in this job.
And it was already starting.
2009 repeat.
Oh gosh, aren't you grateful that didn't happen?
I was so grateful.
And right after taking the new job.
I was sitting.
Gosh!
I was sitting on the phone talking to Mark Winkler, the Region E coordinator from SEMA, who is such a friend to Southeast Missouri, by the way, and such a friend to Butler County. And he was talking to me on the phone, and he said, "Well, how are things going down there?" And I said, "Well, I'm watching ice accumulating on this power line." And from sitting in my truck, I was right out in front of my office, sitting in my truck, and I was looking at the trees and the power lines up Broadway. And I said, "Mark, this thing could go very bad." And he said, "Yeah," he said, "it could. We could repeat 2009. But, just stay cool. We'll get through it."
Stay cool. Yeah, right.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like that would be even possible.
I had no clue what my next move would be, But we have that sort of a resource as an expert. Mark Winkler considers his mentor Lloyd Myler. And, whoa, I thought the power went out.
No, it's just Sean.
He is such a prankster. But he considers Lloyd Myler his mentor, and he has that type of spirit. about EMA is that he has the Lloyd Myler point of view, and so he and I work closely together. So,
Good.
you know, and in fact, that brings up this whole business of Southeast Missouri in general. Um, you know, I've discovered, and I may have a plan on how I'm going to work on some of this, but I've discovered that that we have a real problem in Southeast Missouri, and that is that we're a collection of little tiny counties. They have a tiny um, tax base,
Right.
and they literally cannot afford to have a full-time Jeff Shawn
Right.
EMA guy.
Right.
And I'll
Yeah.
pick on one of them that's actually become a good friend of mine in New Madrid County. It's a real fine gentleman named Dave McClarty. Dave is a grocer. He owns Dave's grocery store in Lilburn, and he's the Lilburn fire chief.
Oh my gosh, he wears many hats, does
And
he
he's
not?
the New Madrid EMA director.
Bless his heart.
Well, yeah, and I have no idea what they pay Dave, and I don't know officially, you know, if he works one day a week or, you know,
Right.
I don't know how all that works, except to say that, you know, not only can they not afford to have Dave to be full time, but they don't really have any resources.
Right.
They don't have any kinds of backup to speak of, and he doesn't have time to develop all the different aspects of EMA that I spend so much of my professional time working on. And the same thing is true with Pembescott County. The same thing is true with Wayne County. And there's this organization called SEMO EMA. And it's interesting because it originally was SEMO Civil Defense. And guess who initiated that organization 20-something years ago?
I don't know.
Come on, you got one chance.
20-something years ago.
Yeah,
I've been
probably
in town
it's probably
about
more like
17.
30 years ago, in fact.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow, so that
It
was
was
even
somebody
before
from
I was
Butler
here.
County,
Huh, I don't know.
Lloyd Myler.
Oh, no kidding.
Isn't that amazing that his footprint
No kidding.
still, you know.
So
is
he
all-
started the organization, got
he
it
started,
formed.
yeah,
and
he
that's
had,
what made up of all the EMA directors from all of the Southeast Missouri counties, I'm assuming?
well, yeah, in fact, it's all of Region E, which is 13 counties,
Okay.
and all the contiguous counties. So it would be like Carter County is not part of Region E, but it would be a part of SEMO EMA.
I see.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, this organization has not been particularly active due to a number of things. One of them is all the Homeland Security money and these governmental organizations, and everybody got focused on getting the grant monies, and they forgot about the organization. But here's where I'm going with this. You know, anywhere in Southeast Missouri, when there's an emergency, we're not like the big city where you just have tons of resources and tons of people who are trained in all the different aspects
Right.
of running an emergency operations center and and incident command and all that. We're under resourced, and certainly, you know, Butler County is better resourced than so many of these other tiny counties, but it doesn't take long at all for me to just not have all the things I need to stand up for a big emergency.
Right.
So the vision that I'm developing is a vision where we don't give up any local authority in individual counties. The EMA director remains the EMA director. All emergencies begin and end with a local authority.
Okay.
But what we do, though, is as a region, we come together. So if something happens to Dave, if a big tornado hits Lilburn and injures a bunch of people and tears up a bunch of homes, automatically in the region, not through SEMA, this is of our own volition. We set up a MAC, a multi-agency center that begins resourcing immediately and sending things, the needs directly towards New Madrid County. And then, if it's a pretty big emergency, then it would actually morph into a regional emergency operations center, so that Dave down there, who he can't sit and babysit an EOC, he's one guy. He can just concentrate on his emergency in an operational sense, doing the things that he needs to do, and he's got his regional backup.
I
And
like
so,
that.
yeah, and
And
so
kind of sharing the resources. One county
right,
might have, I don't know, generators that
right.
could be used, while another county might have volunteers, people that can actually man those,
Well, and
problems.
Dave could waste
That's,
hours and
yeah,
even days trying to figure out how to go ask for all those things.
right.
Whereas what I'm envisioning is that as collectively as a county, we we know when there's an incident of any kind. As soon as there's an incident, Dave makes one phone call, and a MAC is set up, and they start shuttling resources. The MAC is set up. Let's say this is an event that happens in New Madrid County, so automatically the EO the MAC sets up, let's say in Poplar Bluff or in Sykeston or in Kennett. Doesn't really matter.
Right.
We'll have a series of locations, but that MAC sets up and automatically begins sending resources his way. Then if it's a big emergency and we get an assessment of what there is, then it just morphs into and becomes an emergency operations center that's classic, the way they're designed to be,
Right.
without Dave having to worry about trying to manage that.
Right.
He'll have his hands full,
Sure.
and we'll be sending resources and help his way operationally, and then he can just take care of his county because all the nomenclature of an effective EOC is just automatically set up for him. And it would be the same for anybody who's a member. Everybody in CMO EMA would have that type of coverage that's just going to happen. And I'll tell you one
That's
of the things.
awesome. I like that.
Well, it is because, here's the thing. I went down to Memphis, it's been about a year ago, for an earthquake seminar. In fact, I know it was between snowstorms, and I had bad weather going down there, so I remember.
Oh, dang.
But I was in Memphis, and I showed up. They had this earthquake seminar at their EOC, and I walked into this amphitheater, and here were all these kiosks and monitors, and they all had nameplates and all these different organizational structure that happens in an emergency.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going, oh my gosh, how could I ever duplicate that in Butler County? I can't. And if I can't in Butler County, then how in the world can Pemiscot County?
Exactly.
So
Exactly. All the smaller than us even.
yeah, so
We're small, but they're tiny.
that's right.
And they don't have those resources.
They don't have those resources. I don't have those resources. But collectively, if you take a look at 18 counties, we've got those resources.
Right.
So what we would do is we'd create our own example of that for the region. And the important thing, I think, is going to be to get assuming I can get this done, the important thing is going to be to get the individual counties to understand they're not giving up any authority, that this is just that we come
Right.
together as a team and we help each county get through that crisis. So, that's...
Gosh, I can't think of a better idea than that.
Well...
I mean, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so I'll just snap my fingers and it'll happen.
There you go. Well, we've only
It's
got
a
a few
hill to
minutes
climb.
left, believe it or not. But, while you were saying that, I was sitting here thinking, you probably need a variety of volunteers.
Yes.
And I know you've got, of course, our weather team
Oh,
that
yeah.
helps a lot with that kind of a thing. And, of course, you've got any of the first responders, emergency workers here in Butler County that in a situation like that are going to be there.
Yes.
What other kinds of people do you need, though, in
Well,
an
see-
emergency situation?
Well, see, there's where that disconnect is.
Right.
Yeah, I've got people who are operationally responsive, and like we're forming a chainsaw group that will be deployed when we get some really nasty storms and there's
Sure.
trees down everywhere, and rather than
Which is
just
so important.
everybody who owns
To open
a
roads
chainsaw
or
going
whatever.
out.
Right, yeah.
Okay, and so we have Poplar Bluff Severe Weather Response Team. We have
Right.
CMO Search and Rescue. So there's amazing volunteer resources, but the nomenclature of an emergency operations center where you have all these different categories like planning and logistics and all that stuff has to run around the clock. You have to be trained in NIMS. You have to take FEMA courses so you understand what the responsibilities are. The public information officer and all those kinds of things. Think about that. When we have an emergency, the people, if we have one here in Poplar Bluff, well, so many of the people, even if I've got them all trained, I can't keep it staffed around the clock. And what if those people are going to have to go out and deal with the emergency themselves?
You're going to need people.
That's right.
You're just going to need manpower.
That's right. So if we regionalize this, then if Poplar Bluff gets hit, then people in Sykeston and Cape and New Madrid County and so on, they come together and they come together as resources and begin feeding us what we need into Butler County. See, eventually SEMA comes together. They have response teams, but we're talking about not hours but days before you can put all that in place. And here in Butler County, if they all swarm into Butler County for my EOC, I'm going to be spending all my time trying to figure out how to get
organizing them.
Yeah, right.
Organizing them.
Right. And I can't just, I don't have any place to have this amphitheater like they had in Memphis,
right.
with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment. And, in the big city, there's just, the EMA director, I'm sure, has a large staff.
Exactly. And you've got you.
Yeah, right. And I've got Barbara who works part-time. And so, of course I rely on volunteers, but that's, and those people are the front line and they're the very best in the world. The problem is if it's a large emergency, we quickly get beyond our capabilities. Once we use up our first five, to use a basketball analogy, our bench is not deep,
right,
because we're a small county. And so how much more is it that way in someplace like New Madrid County or Pemiscot County?
Gosh, yeah. Man, I feel for them.
Yeah, and Scott County is pretty close to the same size as we are, but it's the same deal with them. They're going to be in a lot of trouble, just like we would be if something big happens. Now, they had a pretty sizable tornado, and I believe that was either early spring. Seems like that was early spring, and it knocked down a few buildings, and I think one person was injured. But so that sort of thing, they're able to just handle that, and it's over very quickly. But you get a pine cone sized pine, the F3 EF3 that hit pine cone.
Right.
You get a storm like that tears across Poplar Bluff. We're really going to have our hands full. And how we respond, my first mission is to protect life. And then after that part is taken care of, then the job is to protect personal property.
Well, Jeff, here it is. It's that holiday shopping season. I just thought of a great gift idea for folks.
Weather radio?
Yes. Weather alert
radio.
radios.
I got you trained, Brittney. That's right.
What a great Christmas gift.
Yes.
If you know a family that doesn't have a weather alert radio,
that's right.
Get them one for Christmas.
They're $30.
It's a reasonably priced gift.
Several merchants in town have them.
And think you could be actually saving that family's lives.
Absolutely.
With that Christmas gift.
Absolutely.
Now, how many Christmas gifts can claim that they could save somebody's life?
Yeah, that's right.
Come on, now that's a Christmas gift.
And as we've covered many times in this format right here, by far, Southeast Missouri is the deadliest place on planet Earth historically for tornadoes. More people have died in the state of Missouri than anywhere on planet Earth from tornadic activity. And people are always like, well, what about Oklahoma and what about Kansas? Well, they have lots of tornadoes, but they see them coming,
right?
And they just
from a long way off,
and they haven't been hit by these epic storms that we have.
And they all have storm cellars.
Yeah, right. And because they have them
almost
all the time.
Everybody in Oklahoma has a storm cellar.
Yeah,
we don't see that here like they do there.
Right.
So
out of the 25 deadliest tornadoes of recorded history, 5 of them were in Missouri.
Wow.
And number 17 was a 1927 tornado that hit Poplar Bluff.
Yeah.
And the number 1, the worst tornado in recorded history, was the epic Tri-States tornado that actually killed 700 people across 3 states. It was on the ground. Imagine this. This one tornado, which was an EF5, was on the ground for 200 miles.
Golly.
And they
That's
estimate
amazing.
700 people perished.
That is amazing.
But the number 3 was in St. Louis. A lot of people don't know that. Killed nearly 300 people.
Really? I didn't know
Way
that.
worse than Joplin. Joplin
Wow.
is either number 5 or number 7. I don't remember which. But think about that. Joplin, the Tri-States tornado started near Ellington.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Poplar Bluff tornado, number 17, all in all recorded history.
5 in Missouri.
Tell me how bad it is in Kansas and Oklahoma, and I'll show you the statistics. And that's why there are more, according to Midland, who is the big weather radio company, there are more weather radios owned per capita in southeast Missouri than anywhere on planet
Oh,
Earth.
really?
Yeah.
Well, see, now there's one of those lists we're topping that's actually a good one.
That's right.
We
And,
top a lot of bad lists in southeast Missouri, but there's a good one.
My buddies Craig Metter and Jim Hager with Poplar Bluff Severe Weather Response Team and myself, we spend all of our time pointing our bony finger of contention at people and asking them, do you own a weather radio? And if you don't, why not? And if they do, when did you last change the batteries?
Yeah.
Because you need it to work if the power goes off in the middle of the night.
Yeah, that's one of those things you should be just periodically put it in your phone so it reminds you, change those batteries.
That's right. And if you have a problem with the programming, sometimes they're misprogrammed and it's going off constantly and you just want to unplug it and throw it away.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. Call
Don't
me.
do that.
Call me. I'll make sure your weather radio is properly programmed. We'll get that done for you because, my goodness, what a lifesaver that can be. You know, you've turned everything else off. Maybe your Nixle alert will go off on your telephone, but that may not wake you up. Your weather radio will wake you up.
It has an alarm on it designed to do just that.
That's right.
And we do have a strong history of nighttime storms in southeast Missouri. And, you know, if you're like me, here I am. I don't even have cable television or network or anything like that.
You're a primitive girl, Brittney.
I am kind of a primitive girl. I am. But because of that, the only warning I have is my traditional radio or my weather alert radio.
Right.
And
thank God you have that.
So think Christmas, think weather alerts.
That's right.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful gift. And too bad you and I don't own stock in Midland Radio.
No kidding. Maybe we should buy some. Well, Jeff, believe it or not, we are out of time, man. Thank you so much. I know it was last minute asking you to come in like this, but I certainly do appreciate you taking time to come visit with us.
I appreciate having the format to be able to get word out to the folks I love on this earth the very most. So thank you I'll come in anytime like that if I can.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's it for today's Brittney on the Bluff. We'll do it again tomorrow right here on Today's Talk, KWOC, 9:30 a.m. and 93.3 FM.
Informative, entertaining, and free. Today's Talk, 9:30 a.m.